There comes a tender turning point in a woman's life. When everything she once relied upon begins to shift. Not with the crash of thunder. Not with the violence of storms. But with a quiet unraveling. That feels almost too gentle to notice at first. And yet too profound to ignore. It happens in the ordinary moments. A conversation that falls flat. A friendship that slowly untethers. A dream that no longer carries its former spark. A door that used to swing open. Now refusing to budge. It is in these subtle fractures that God begins his slow and sacred rearranging. At first, she cannot see it. She only feels the weight of absence. The sudden hush. Where there used to be noise. The thinning of her circle. The space around her widening. Until she no longer knows whether she is being isolated or invited. Loneliness stands at her door. Like an uninvited guest. Silence lingers in her home. Like a long-forgotten memory. And she wonders. Has God stepped away? Has everyone else stepped back? Or have I somehow stepped wrong? But heaven is patient. He lets her ask every question. Until she finally notices something extraordinary. The silence is not empty. It is full. Full of whispers. Full of grace. Full of the presence she has been too busy to feel. For this is not a season of abandonment. This is the season of divine reset. God is not taking things away from her. He is taking her away from things that can no longer hold her future. He is removing distractions that have absorbed her energy. He is closing doors that once provided comfort, but now hinder transformation. He is shifting her atmosphere so her spirit can breathe again. And slowly, ever so slowly, she begins to feel the work happening. One morning, she wakes up and notices she is not as fragile as she once thought she was. The tears that used to fall quickly now sit quietly at the corners of her eyes. Not because she is hardened, but because she is healing. God begins to pull her attention inward. He shows her the pieces of her soul she has tucked away. Behind strength, behind responsibility. Behind caretaking and carrying what was never hers to carry. He touches the old wounds she thought were already scarred over. But they soften under his hand. Not because she is breaking, but because she is finally safe enough to be whole. In this season, she learns to distinguish between people who clung to her and people who cared for her. Between connections that drained her and connections that fed her. Between the life she built to survive her past and the life God is building to reflect her future. And in the midst of this unfolding, God teaches her something remarkable. That solitude is not a sentence. It is a sanctuary. Here, in the stillness, she begins to rediscover her own voice. The one that became muted by pleasing, performing, surviving. The one that trembled under expectations and bent under the weight of trying to be everything to everyone. Her voice grows slow, thoughtful, honest. It speaks gently at first, then steadily, then boldly. And with each whisper of truth, she steps back into herself. She remembers she is not defined by who walked away, who misunderstood her, or who failed to see her worth. She is defined by the one who has never left her, the one who writes new beginnings in the very places where others placed endings. As the days stretch quietly, she realizes she is not falling apart. She is being peeled back revealed, reintroduced to her own depth. She finds her tears cleansing, her silence restorative, her solitude holy. She discovers that the path forward is not lit by the approval of others, but by the whisper of God saying, "This way, trust me." And she follows, not because she understands everything, but because she finally understands Him. And one day, after the slow work is finished, and the sacred reset has done its work, she will rise with a softness that feels new, and a strength that feels ancient. She will look at this long, quiet chapter, the one she once feared, and she will bless it. She will say, "This was not the season that broke me. This was the season that built me. This was where God separated noise from truth, fear from faith, and who I once was, from who I am now becoming." A woman who has walked through divine reset walks differently. She speaks with clarity. She loves with discernment. She chooses with intention. She stands with a steadiness that can only be learned in the school of stillness. She becomes the kind of woman who glows quietly, not because life is perfect, but because her peace is. And that is what happens when God becomes her only anchor. She stops drifting. She stops shrinking. She stops apologizing for the sacredness of her own becoming. She rises, grounded, guided, and gloriously new.